Bye-bye to all you groupies and gold diggers. Is there a bumper on your ass? No, nigga. I'm doing 100 on the highway.
We start the show with breaking news. It just broke all over me. I was getting ready for the show. I'm putting everything together. I look online. Broke. I know that sounds kind of weird. All right. I might regret saying it. You want to know what it is? Elizabeth Warren. ABC News is reporting Barack Obama will nominate Elizabeth Warren as interim head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Fun for everybody. Okay, so that just happened, and it hasn't happened yet. I'm saying the reporting on it, ABC News' report on it, just happened. And if that is true, that's fantastic news. We can keep the Obama poster still up on the office. We said we were going to take it down if he didn't nominate Elizabeth Warren. It's not, as we said from the very beginning, it's not just that Elizabeth Warren is the end-all, be-all. It's, well, the government can't run without her, etc. I think she's fantastic. It was her idea in the first place to do this. She pushed it forward. She's obviously the right person for it, and it's fantastic to have her in. But the symbolism is more important. And it's not, and I don't mean it just like, oh, it's symbolic. I mean, it's a symbol of which way the president is going, right? So if he did not nominate Elizabeth Warren, you were going to get a lot more of the same, no change, establishment, the bankers win, there's no regulation, there's nobody looking out for us, nobody looking out for the middle class. Now, the fact that it looks like he's going to nominate her, well, you know what? Maybe there's a little change in the air. Maybe there's a little hope, okay? So because she will fight for us. That's been her track record. It would be shocking if she didn't really fight for consumers in the middle class, and I suspect, of course, that she will. So the fact that they're going in that direction with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is an excellent sign of things to come. Let's hope the president understands that that's not only good politics heading into an election, and I suspect that's certainly part of the reason that he did it, but also good policy. You get better results, and then you will win more elections with better results anyway. All right. Whew. Looks like we dodged a bullet on that one. Okay. In fact, we dodged a lot of bullets. Man, Chris Dodd was, man, that guy is now the worst. Do you remember that I supported Chris Dodd in the primaries in 2008? Because he was running on the Constitution, et cetera. And that's the thing about politicians, man. You just can't trust them. I mean, there's a couple I still trust. You know, Senator Feingold, he's going to be on the show later. Actually, we've already interviewed him, but we're going to share that interview with you. We just did that interview. Look, you know, I'm on the record. I like the guy, right? And I think he's principled. I think he's fought. I'm going to tell you about some more tough progressive fighters. There are a handful, right? But other than that, so Chris Dodd is now, you know, right before this news broke, he was still like on Elizabeth Warren, I don't know if you do an interim, you know, appointment and it doesn't go through the Senate, it might not be legitimate. How much do you love the bankers? How much can't you wait to get paid by the bankers as soon as you retire? So all these people came from the senators from the right, the senators from the so-called left, the bankers, they all came for her. And talk about dodging a bullet, it was like this. And she was all matrix and stuff, and now it looks like she's going to be head of the Bureau. Let's hope this wasn't some sort of trick by Obama, right? Let's hope that this is real. And look, credit where credit is due. Are you with me? Are you giving him credit right now? Check off the credit box, okay? Let's be a little optimistic today. All right. By the way, if ABC News is wrong, boy, am I going to withdraw all of that in a massive way. Okay. And I hope they're not, look, the one last thing on that is they're reporting that it's the Financial Protection Bureau. I hope it is, because I hope it isn't some trick like, oh, we have nominated her, congratulations to Dogcatcher. Like some other position that isn't the one that we're interested in. So, like, please, Obama, please, no tricks, okay? I'm already checking off the credit, please, okay? Now, of course, we also had massive political news from yesterday. I'm going to talk more about this in the next segment, but the Tea Party is on the march. And they won in Delaware. You know it, I know it. The American people now know it. It's the masturbation lady, Christine O'Donnell. Look, I'm going to get into her in a second because now there's an awesome internal Republican war. Oh, they're going to war. Karl Rove versus the whole Tea Party. Karl Rove versus Sean Hannity. having fun. Next segment. But you know what? I want to give you a tease. Just because I'll probably play this clip 28 times, maybe on today's show. Okay, but I'm going to play it for you first. Here, Christine O'Donnell, the one that won in Delaware. I'm going to tell you why it's a crazy, crazy choice later. Okay, let's go to it. Let's go to number 8. Okay, this is the current Republican candidate for Senate in Delaware talking about masturbation.
My name is Christine O'Donnell. I am the president and founder of The SALT. The SALT stands for the Savior's Alliance for Lifting the Truth. We choose sexual purity in our lives. We have God-given sexual desires, and we need to understand them and preserve them to be used in God's appropriate context. We need to address sexuality with young people, and masturbation is part of sexuality, but it is important to discuss this from a moral point of view.
Masturbation is a selfish act, and it's a lustful one, and we are to walk with pure hearts, not adulterous, lusting hearts.
The Bible is clear in the fact that it says that any sexual act outside of the realm of marriage is wrong.
The Bible says that lust in your heart is committing adultery. So you can't masturbate without lust. The reason that you don't tell them that masturbation is the answer to AIDS and all these other problems that come with sex outside of marriage is because, again, it is not addressing the issue. You're going to be pleasing each other. And if he already knows what pleases him and he can please himself, then why am I in the picture?
Why am I in the picture? Who's going to fuck me? If he's taking care of himself. What am I doing here? Where's my package? Where's my needs? What's going on? You know that you cannot do masturbation without lust in your heart? Think about it. It appears that Christine O'Donnell has thought about it a lot, which I find fascinating.
You can't masturbate without lust.
Go on, obviously, right? Oh, this is going to be a fun election. I'm already having fun. Oh, come on. And by the way, here's what you don't need to be talking about. How God thinks you should be having sex. Oh, no, we're all into sexuality. You know, we're thinking about it and stuff. You just have to do it in God's appropriate context. I'm always amazed by that, man. Well, God is sitting up there and he's like, all right, now I need you to do it in an appropriate way. Oh, no, little lower. Now go. Yeah, all right. Appropriate context. God doesn't care about your sex life, man. The whole thing is goofy. I know a lot of the religions think he does, that he's up there like a peeping God and watching over you like, what's he doing? Oh, wait a minute, that's wrong. Oh, that one's right. Totally right. Nailed it. Okay. Etc. He ain't doing that, man. And then he's checking into your heart. There's like a lustometer. He's like, a little lust in the heart. Gonna have to damage you. Okay, it's just, I don't believe that. I don't, okay? Maybe I'm the crazy one. Or maybe the masturbation lady is. But we're going to find out in Delaware. As it appears, she'll probably get her ass handed to her. Oh, Tea Party, what have you done? What have you done? Looks like you just handed a seat to the Democrats. Good work. But hey, we could be wrong. Imagine if she's the senator. She's the masturbation senator from Delaware. Oh, come on. God, this show is fun. All right. Now, look, I'm going to get back to her. That was a warm-up. That was appetizer. Okay. That was like some cocktail shrimp. Okay. We're going to do the full meal in the next segment. So, now, I want to tell you something we've been talking about a lot now, these tax cuts, right? And what's Obama going to do about it? How the Republicans going to respond? The reason that I've been focusing on the issue of tax cuts all this week is because it is central to this election, and it could turn this election around. Now, I've been telling you all week, hey, you know what? If the Democrats stay strong on this issue, they will win, because I believe that the American people do not want to give tax cuts to the rich. I believe that partly from evidence I've seen before, earlier polling, etc., and my general sense of how politics is playing out in this country. Well, we now have some new polls that show that I was exactly right. The last poll out says that people, when they ask them the question, do you want the top 2% to continue to get the Bush tax cuts, right? Overwhelming, 55 to 38, saying, no, we don't. Okay? That's a 17-point advantage. 17 percentage points. Jesus, go. There it is. It's flashing. You see that? 17% advantage. Let me try to make that clearer. 17% advantage. Okay, you know what you do?
Supposed to do, you take them out of the office and hit them with a stick a couple times. They will do.
They will do. Okay? So now, get a load of this. If they frame it right, that's without any frame, right? According to this poll, if they frame it right, and let me tell you who the poll's from, by the way. It's from Greenberg, okay? And you can look it up for yourself. Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner for Democracy Corps, okay? So, but if they frame it right and they say, hey, you know what? We're going to take the money that would have gone to the tax cuts for the rich, and we're going to pay down the deficit, or we're going to spend it to create jobs. Now, are you in favor of getting rid of those Bush tax cuts for the top 2%? Forget overwhelming majorities, right? In the overall. Forget independents, okay? Among Republicans, 55% said get rid of the tax cuts for the rich. 55%. Do we have that one? Go. Watch this. It's going to flash again, okay? It's just so you get how clear this is. Fire! Go! Damn it. Our timing is not so good. Okay. Later it will flash. So come on, 55% of Republicans. You get it? So now, one other thing, and we could flash to 17% again, because this isn't just among the Democratic base, and this isn't just about the enthusiasm gap. Among independents, the independents that you need to win elections, there's also a 17-point gap on the issue where it's not even framed right. They say, yeah, we don't want tax cuts for the rich. So obvious, right? And by the way, the Obama administration has found a good fact that they could easily use to beat people up with it, right? $100,000, that if you have the Bush tax cuts, okay, for the top 2%, on average, every millionaire will get a $100,000 tax cut, on average. Now, that's a giant number. There it is, 100,000. You see, some things do flash. Okay, so now you keep saying, hey, you want the average millionaire to get 100,000? You want him to get $100,000 when we can use that money towards the deficit of the budget. Even Republicans say, no, I don't. And let me give you one more fact. Again, without any framing, you just say, hey, do you want the tax cuts for the top 2%? They ask Republicans. Even a plurality of Republicans, 48 to 46, say, no, I don't want it. I don't want tax cuts for the rich. I don't care what you spend it on. I don't want it. 48 to 46. How much clearer do they have to be? No tax cuts for the rich, okay? And they're just as clear on tax cuts for the middle class. They do want them, okay? Now, luckily, that is Obama's proposal. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him, okay? So now, look, if you play that right, that one issue can swing this whole election. You take them out and you beat them with a stick over it. For the next 2 months, if the Democrats play it right, I'm going to tell you how they're going to play it in a second, okay? And they come out and say, Republicans, they don't want the tax cuts for the middle class, they want them for the rich. They holding the middle class hostage. Holding the middle class hostage, they won't give you the tax cuts. All they want is tax cuts for the rich. Swing the whole election. Look at those numbers, okay? Now, how are the Democrats going to blow it? That's the conversation. They might not. I'm actually slightly hopeful, okay? They have three options on how to deal with this. I've been reading every story on it, and these are the three that are in play, okay? Option number one is they go for the whole Obama bill, okay? And they put it all together, and they say, hey, you know what? We're going to get the middle class tax cuts, but we are not going to give tax cuts for the rich, okay? And you have to vote on the whole package together. And so the politics of that would mean that the GOP, as Obama's been saying on the stump, the GOP is holding the middle class hostage if they vote against tax cuts for the middle class just because they want them for the rich. So that's option number one, okay? Now, that is the correct option if you ask me. Option number two is, hey, let's split the bill. And if we split the bill, then you can vote on middle class tax cuts and you could vote on tax cuts for the rich. So now, I think that's a terrible idea because the politics of that is it lets the GOP vote for the middle class tax cuts, so they get to say, oh, we voted for the tax cuts for the middle class. And he gets to have them say, "Oh, Democrats voted for tax increases, voted for tax increases." So why would you do that? Why would you do that option? Of course, that is at this point, it appears the most likely option. Okay, but if you think option number 2 is bad, wait till you get a load of option number 3. Option number 3 is total Democratic capitulation, where they say, "All right, we do a compromise where we do tax cuts for the rich and the middle class for 1 to 2 years." And the GOP gets to declare victory because that's exactly what they want. Steny Hoyer in the House, who is supposedly the number 2 guy in the House for the Democrats, is saying he's open to that option. Van Hollen, the guy in charge of getting more Democrats elected in the House, he says he's open to option number 3. Look, if they don't go with option number 1, you have to wonder where their head's at. Do they not want to win? Are they the worst at politics that we've ever seen in our lifetimes? Or are they so beholden to give the tax cuts to the rich that they just can't help themselves? That they're like, well, it would really help us politically, and we're in a giant amount of trouble politically, but no, okay, tax cuts for the rich no matter what, because our system is so deeply corrupt. All right, so look, option number 1 is clearly the way to go, and they might go that way, so hang in there, okay? Let's see if they do the whole Obama plan. If they do, they can turn this whole thing around. In fact, one last thing from the latest polls. They polled people after they told them about this issue, before and after. Before, the Republicans have about a 7-point advantage. After they say, hey, the Democrats stand for this and the Republicans stand for that, the advantage shrinks down to 2%. In a nationwide poll to shrink a standard Republican versus standard Democrat by 5 points on one issue, that's gigantic. Will you, for the love of God,
Supposed to do? You take them out of the office and hit them with a stick a couple times. They will do.
will you do it? Now, I tell you all this because we will find out what the Democratic Party is about. Do they know about politics? Do they care to fight for us? Or are they going to sell out to the rich no matter what, even if they're Democratic and their political lives are in jeopardy? That's the fun part. Stay tuned for the next 2 months. All right, let's take a break here. Come back and tell you what happened in the primaries yesterday. All right, back on the Young Turks. Now, we had some primaries yesterday, and they were fun. Well, there was some that were on the Democratic side, some on the Republican side. First, let's handle Democrats real quick. We told you about 3 progressives that were running in the Northeast, in Rhode Island, in Boston, and in New Hampshire. And we went 1 for 3. Stephen Lynch was the establishment candidate in Boston's 9th district. He was against the more progressive Mac D'Alessandro. And he won, I think, honestly, fairly comfortably. Not honestly, it's obvious, 65 to 35. So he won. The more progressive candidate in that case did not come out the winner. In Rhode Island, Providence Mayor David Cicilline also defeated 4 people in his race, including David Segal, who was the most progressive there. David Segal got 19.6% of the vote. Not bad in the 4-way race, but Cicilline won fairly easily with 37%. But we did have a winner. We have a winner. Ann McLean Custer won in New Hampshire, and she was clearly the more progressive candidate. And not only that, that's the one that the progressive groups, PCCC, Move On, etc., put most of their energy in. And so that was a big hold your breath moment, like, is she going to win? Is she going to win? Oh, she won. Okay, so, in fact, we're going to have her on the show a little bit later today. We're also going to have Senator Feingold in a tight race. He'll be on the show as well. All right, so that's coming up in a little bit. So that's the Democratic side. Now, let's go to the Republican side. That's where we're having more fun. So, first of all, some of the establishment candidates won in Maryland and other places. Those stories are not as interesting. Let's get to the fun stories, where the Tea Party folks won, and some surprising wins. First of all, Palladino, who is off the charts right-wing, okay, tear down the whole government. It's, things he said about Barack Obama, the poor, etc. We spent the whole show on it. We've spent half the show on it before, earlier. He crushed Rick Lazio, beat them with a stick. Last numbers I saw was like 65-35. I was like, whoa! We thought it was going to be close. It wasn't even close. I'm amazed by that. So Palladino, is now going to run against Andrew Cuomo for governor of New York. And unless something really, really weird happens, he will get crushed. So it was basically the Republicans in New York saying, that's our guy, and we're going to stand with him, and we're going to lose, and it's going to be awesome. Okay, so, all right. Have at it, Hoss, right? So it looks like they're on their way to a loss in New York. I mean, it would be beyond stunning if Palladino beat Cuomo, okay? So, but hey, it's politics. You never know. Stay tuned, right? So, now that's New York. Now here comes the most fun one. If you hadn't heard yet, Christine O'Donnell, our masturbation lady, has defeated Mike Castle, the establishment candidate for the Republicans, in their primary in Delaware. Mike Castle had a gigantic lead on the Democratic opponent in the polls. The Republicans were going to win in Delaware, a very blue state. Instead, they gave the Democrats the queen. They gave it to them by having Christine O'Donnell beat Mike Castle in the primary. Christine O'Donnell has a host of problems. And all of these are going to get highlighted. She's losing in the polls to the Democrat. It would be stunning if she won overall. And on top of everything else, if that wasn't fun enough, she started an internal Republican war. Oh, everybody's having fun. You know, but before we do anything else, I'm going to give you the masturbation quotes again. Okay? Beat them with a stick. Clip number 8.
My name is Christine O'Donnell. I am the president and founder of The SALT. The SALT stands for the Saviors Alliance for Lifting the Truth. We choose sexual purity in our lives. We have God-given sexual desires, and we need to understand them and preserve them to be used in God's appropriate context. We need to address sexuality with young people, and masturbation is part of sexuality, but it is important to discuss this from a moral point of view.
Masturbation is a selfish act, and it's a lustful one, and we are to walk with pure hearts, not adulterous, lusting hearts.
And the Bible is clear in the fact that it says that any sexual act outside of the realm of marriage is wrong.
The Bible says that lust in your heart is committing adultery. So you can't masturbate without lust. The reason that you don't tell them that masturbation is the answer to AIDS and all these other problems that come with sex outside of marriage is because, again, it is not addressing the issue. You're going to be pleasing each other. And if he already knows what pleases him and he can please himself, then why am I in the picture?
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Look, I can think of a couple of reasons why you're in the picture. But look, here's a couple of things. Every time I watch that, I come away with something new. It's a treasure chest.
You can't masturbate without lust.
That's so true. All right, now, having said that, I'm missing when we can do masturbation. Because earlier she said masturbation is part of sexuality. But if you're not married, you can't do it because that means you got lust in your heart. You just heard her, right? But if you are married, you still can't do it because then what about Christine? What's she going to do? Right? She said both those things. So, wait, I don't get it. When do people get to masturbate? Okay, apparently never. And then the other lady, she's like, masturbation is so selfish. Well, I suppose that's somewhat true. But would it be less selfish if you shared it with someone? So if you went up to someone and was like, look, I don't want to be selfish. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in front of you. I'm just trying to be selfless, man. I'm just trying to be generous. Call me Mother Teresa. Have I said enough sacrilegious things on the show today? Okay. I would like to share my love with you. I keep thinking about Dave Pounder. Is anybody old school TYT enough to remember Dave Pounder? You remember? Dave Pounder was a male porn star we had on the show once. And he told this amazing story about how he was hooking up with a girl and she wasn't having it. So he said, when in doubt, take it out. And he pulled a pounder. Okay. And then apparently she thought that was a selfish act and thought, hey, what about me? And then she joined in. You remember? That was the twist in the story. And it turns out she finished him off. I don't know. Somehow I think Christine O'Donnell and Dave Pounder, you put them together and there's some sense in there. I don't know where the sense is, but it's in there somewhere. And then, of course, Steve O, who's with us now, a while back came up with, you know what if you start pulling a pounder and you get kind of embarrassed and you stop, some of the way through? Would that be a quarter pounder? And then Tom and I said, we were talking about this last night, not related to Christine O'Donnell, randomly. Tom added a nice little line to that. He said, if you throw in a little, like, cheesy line like, hey, want to give me a hand? Would that be a quarter pounder with cheese? All right, I've gone too far. All right, so now let's get back to Christine O'Donnell. Oh, that masturbation stuff. Oh, 2 months straight. That's what's happening on TYT. Okay, now, she's not done, though. There's much more where that came from, okay? She also has some interesting, counterpoints in some way. At a press conference, a reporter asked her, hey, would she send out bikini photos to gain votes? Because apparently some people think she's cute. The earlier pictures, you know what I'm saying? Right? These days, still, okay, all right, whatever, right? So I thought she was going to be outraged by that. No, this was her response. Quote, a candidate said several years ago, I'm not concerned the reason you vote for me, as long as you vote for me. So the lady who's against masturbation would send out pictures of herself in a bikini to get votes. Okay, I don't know. I'm putting it together for you. We're trying to figure it out together where she stands. Now, of course, a person like that also has a great number of other curious things that she said. Of course, now here we go with, no, that's the lust and the masturbation thing. I think I've got that 7 times. Here's another one. She went after Mike Castle during this primary fight. And get a load of how she went after him. She said, quote, there are the kind of cheap, underhanded, unmanly tactics that we've come to expect from Obama's favorite Republican, Mike Castle. Mike, this is not a bake-off. Get your man pants on. Oh, damn. And you know what? Down goes Castle. Okay? And she got in this face. Man, these Tea Party folks are interesting. I mean, it's just like they're so the polar opposite of the Democrats. It's kind of entertaining to watch. Democrats are like, can we just give tax cuts to the middle class? Right? And these people are like, oh, get your man pants on, Castle. What now? You gonna go to a bake-off? Is that what you think? Take your pants off for the masturbation, but don't do it. Put your pants back on to do this thing. And plus, I'll show you a shot of in a bikini because I want to win. Fascinating. All right, so now here comes another interesting twist. So Christine O'Donnell wins in Delaware against Mike Castle, the establishment candidate, and then all of a sudden we've got a Republican war. Karl Rove versus Sean Hannity. Karl Rove versus the bloggers. Karl Rove versus the Tea Party. Bring it. Okay, now everybody's having fun. So you know what? Okay, all right, Carl, just calm down for a second. Okay, let's start it off. Let's go to clip number 2. Here's Rove on Hannity.
First, your reaction, first we had Alaska, Murkowski loses. You had Rand Paul beat the establishment candidate, Sharon Angle. Now it's Delaware. Your reaction?
Yeah. Instead, we have a true upset of somebody with little money, little track record, and I think this really says that this is more about Mike Castle's voting record than about the appeal of Christine O'Donnell.
I'm not sure if I agree with you. I think there's a battle going on with what we define as the establishment, where we're talking about with Dana and Stewart, and those that are taking strong conservative views. I mean, Mike Castle was one of the 7 or 8 Republicans in the House that voted for cap and tax, fighting with the NRA. He's not pro-life.
Well, look, I'm not certain of this because, look, there were conservatives on both sides of this race in Delaware. And one thing that Christine O'Donnell is now going to have to answer in the general election that she didn't have to answer in the primary is her own checkered background. You made my case. You made out a list of the things that Mike Castle had done right, or excuse me, done wrong. You didn't make out a list of the things that Christine O'Donnell had done right. I've met her. I've got to tell you, I wasn't frankly impressed as her abilities as a candidate. And again, these serious questions about how does she make her living? Why did she mislead voters about her college education? How come it took her nearly 2 decades to pay her college bills so she could get her college degree? How did she make a living? Why did she sue a well-known and well-thought-of conservative think tank?
This is probably one of the few times we're going to disagree here, because I've met her, I've interviewed her a lot over the years. I found her quite impressive. And more importantly, she is a solid conservative. And I think what people are saying in this primary, in this race, and I think all across the country in these other races that we're mentioning here, is that, you know what, if you vote for cap and tax... opponent that says they wouldn't, then they have a choice. They have an option.
You know, again, you're making my case. This was about Mike Castle's bad votes. It does conservatives little good to support candidates who, at the end of the day, while they may be conservative in their public statements, do not evince the characteristics of rectitude and truthfulness and sincerity and character that the voters are looking for. And we'll see how she can answer these questions. She sure as heck didn't answer them thus far in the campaign.
Well, I interviewed
and now
her.
in the general election, she will be asked about it.
I interviewed her, and I felt her explanations were far more plausible than was.
Did you ask her about the people who are following her home to her headquarters and how she's checked each night in the bushes? Did you ask her? I mean, there are just a lot of nutty things she's been saying that just simply don't add up to it.
Sounds like you don't support her, but I will tell you, I think
I'm for the Republican, but I got to tell you, we were looking at 8 to 9 seats in the Senate. We're now looking at 7 to 8, in my opinion. This is not a race we're going to be able to win.
Man, Karl Rove sitting on a rooftop going after Christine O'Donnell. So now comes the counterattack. Oh man, the conservative blogosphere is lit up over this. They're so mad at Rove. Ed Morrissey from Hot Air, he's one of the larger bloggers, says, rarely have I seen such childishness from the supposed leaders of a political establishment who set the very rules and customs they now want to ignore because they just got embarrassed on a national stage. Grow up, shut up, and get to work. Michelle Malkin, Rove came across as an effete, sore loser instead of the supposedly brilliant and grounded GOP strategist that he's supposed to be. Effete, that's usually what they call Democrats. That means you're gay, right? I mean, they just, woof, man. Okay? This shit is real. Here comes, speaking of real, Dan Real from Real World View. He says Fox News should suspend Karl Rove. It's on, brother. It's on. Especially given his comments on Fox News tonight. Until this is resolved, it seems impossible to trust Rove as an objective analyst. In terms of the conservative movement, we should not simply ignore him, but proactively work to undermine Rove in whatever ways we can, given his obvious willingness to undermine us. Oh, we got a conservative war, and I am loving every minute of it. Now here comes Sarah Palin off the oh, there he goes. He's going to be onto that, not just a bus, but that plane, right? Rove, get up! Get up! Okay, now here comes Sarah Palin. Off the top rope, which way is she going to go? Let's find out. Clip number 6.
Governor, welcome. You may have heard Karl Rove just a moment ago suggesting that Christine O'Donnell is not electable as a statewide candidate. Your thoughts?
Well, bless his heart. You know, we love our friends. They're in the machine, the expert politicos. But my message to those who say that the GOP nominee is not electable or that they're not even going to try, well, I say, buck up. You know, buck up. Competition's really good, and it makes everyone work harder. And these contested primaries have been great for voters, great for our party, great for democracy at work. And I have absolutely nothing against Karl Rove or any of the guys who have much fatter political resumes than I will ever have. But I just want these fellas that they need to realize that the time for primary debate now is obviously over, and it's time for unity because the time for choosing is near. What we need to do is not lose sight of the ability we have here now, the opportunity to celebrate and capitalize on a weakened left, a weakened Democrat Party, and we need to go forth and conquer for the American people. So it is time to put aside internal power grabs and greed and egos within the party and to fight united for what's right and beneficial for all Americans.
Did you see all that? That's usually the dog whistle stuff they use on Democrats. First of all, she said, buck up. That's not an accident. Okay, that's awfully close to something else, right? Then she said, these people with fatter political resumes. Look, these are not accidents. These are the way the Republicans normally talk about Democrats, where they call them effete or they say they have fatter political resumes. So it makes you go, wait, Karl Rove, fat? What? Huh? Word association. At the end, she just said, these people with their greed and their egos, we got a war on our hands. Cage match, Sarah Palin versus Karl Rove. Oh, somebody get me some popcorn. Now, Karl Rove coming back. He got hurt, dog. He got hurt. He went over to the back in the locker room. You thought it was over. But, oh, here he comes back now, and he's dragging a chair with him. and he gonna hit somebody with it. All right, let's go to clip number 7.
So do you feel, Carl, like your credibility is diminished?
No, look, she believes she's going to win, and that's what a candidate ought to believe. I think the questions about why she had a problem for 5 years with paying her federal income taxes, why her house was foreclosed on and put up for a sheriff's sale, while it took 16 years for her to settle her college debt and get her diploma after she went around for years claiming she was a college graduate. These and other troubling sort of personal background things, she thinks that she has explained them. I think she's got to. I think a lot of voters in Delaware are going to want more than she's offering to them right now, and we'll see. She's got to answer these troubling questions. It's not enough. She said, look, I'm puzzled as to why the IRS put a lien on me. Well, you don't have an IRS lien put on for your taxes that you failed to pay in 2005, 5 years later, unless you haven't paid your taxes. You know, she said it was a technical mistake by the bank why her house was the subject of a foreclosure lawsuit that she lost, and her house was put up for sale at a sheriff's sale, and just before the sheriff's sale, she sold the house on which she owed $90-some-odd thousand. She sold it to $135,000 to her boyfriend, who was also her campaign advisor. I mean, the people are going to want to know more about these. What does she do? Why'd she have only $5,800 in living expenses? Why did she claim to be a graduate of Farley Dickinson in the mid-90s? Since the mid-90s, when it turns out she just got her degree because she had unpaid college bills that they'd had to sue her over. I mean, she thinks, and I accept it, she says, look, the fact that I've had financial difficulties like this make me a sympathetic figure. We'll see here in 59 days whether or not that's what's the verdict of the people of Delaware.
Oh, man, the Republicans, while they had the Democrats on the ropes, okay, this is like the tag team fights from back in the day in WWF when I was growing up. They had him on the ropes. The guy, in fact, he's on the ground. He's squirming around. All you got to do is go and pin him. Oh, you just got to put his hand, your hand on his chest. Meanwhile, the tag team starts fighting one another, right, on the Republican side. And they just set up a big old circle, a nice Republican circle. And here's what's going on inside that circle. What did you do? On an unbelievable twist, the Republicans are giving the Democrats the queen. Okay? They're saying, yeah, here you go, here's some elections. That's why Rove is so pissed. They're not going to win in Delaware. He's right. And when they lose, he's saying, why did we give up seats that we had in our back pocket? Why is it close in Kentucky? Why are we going to lose in Delaware? How the hell are we losing to Harry Reid? What the hell did we do? Oh, I love it. Now we're having fun.
In an attempt to get rid of their bad brand after Bush was in office, they created a monster that they can't control anymore. Tea Party, go craft everybody. We want the most conservative, radical, crazy people in the world. You hate everything. You want us to go back to founding fathers. You want to ride in carts. Where's the horse? You know, and then everybody goes crazy and regresses back to whatever they think it was great times, and now they can't control the monster they just created. Like, oh, what? You mean you going up? What do you want? You want this crazy chicken here? And then so now they're losing control of their own situation they just created.
No. Let me finish the thought for you. That's exactly right. Karl Rove, meet Mr. Frankenstein that you just created. Enjoy. Okay. Me want more conservative. Me will attack Democrat with masturbation points. Okay, well, good luck. Good luck. See what happens, okay? And now Rove's like, no, wait, I didn't quite mean it that way. Well, too bad, too late. Bill Clinton today said, hey, you know what? These current Republicans even make George Bush look like a liberal. George Bush just got out of office, and he was the most radical right president we've ever had. And in this day and age, he wouldn't survive a Tea Party candidate. Forget Reagan. Reagan, I've told you before, is not even close. George W. Bush right now looks too moderate for these guys. Me want more conservative radical. Oh, enjoy that Frankenstein. He's coming towards your village, man. All right, I'm not done with Christine yet. I got one more for you, okay? She says she never tells a lie. More honest than Abe Lincoln, even in dire circumstances. Now, this is an old clip of hers from Politically Incorrect where it's a fascinating moral question. Let's check it out. Clip number 9.
Example, but there is a thing with truth. I do feel truth needs to be graded because you grade murder. I talk about this in my stand-up, but murder 1 down to murder 2, murder 9, whatever you go to. Grade the lies, because Hitler saying that, we're not killing the Jews and there's 6 million dead is let me finish on this, is a different thing to saying, did you, park there and is that your car? No, it isn't my car, They're sort of lying about double parking. They're different levels of lies.
A lie, whether it be a lie or an exaggeration, is disrespect to whoever you're exaggerating or lying to, because it's
quite
not
the opposite. It can be respect.
Oh, you're protecting reality.
Okay,
it's not respecting reality.
If Hitler comes to you in the middle of the Second World War and says, do you have any Jewish people in your house? And you do have. Would you lie to him? That would be a lie. That would be disrespectful to Hitler.
Good question, Eddie.
Can you say that again? I don't think Hitler would personally come to me. But you know what? I believe that if I were in that situation...
Whoa. Answer the question.
I am. If I were in that situation, God would provide a way to do the right thing righteously.
Come on.
I believe that. And
God is not there. Hitler's there and you're there.
You never have to practice deception.
The only way out of it, apart from lying.
See, but that's what I'm talking about. These black and white moralistic answers are crazy. The question is, Hitler comes to you and says, are you hiding any Jews? And you are. And she says, oh, don't worry, I'll find a way out of it. No, you won't. Are you going to lie to Hitler or are you going to be honest? Oh, yeah, the Jews are right there. Go ahead and kill them. No, you lie, because it's not that simple. Morality isn't black and white. Is it, oh, well, hey, sometimes things are at odds. And sometimes letting him know how he can kill people is much, much worse than you lying for a second. And by the way, that's what's actually selfish, okay? Oh, I don't want to besmirch my, honor by ever lying, even if it's to Hitler and even if people get killed over it. So, no, I won't do it. Other people die, that's not my problem, that's their problem. I think that's deeply immoral. We got a lot of issues with Christine O'Donnell, man. It's all very fascinating, and we will delve into it every single day going forward. I'm kidding, kind of. All right, come right back. Oh, by the way, if you thought all these guys were crazy, wait till you get all the Republicans I'm going to tell you about in the next segment. I'm not playing. Young Turks.
Down with us, my manager Mo, he's down with us. Castle D.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Now, Democrats have Republicans on the ropes, and, they've got these Tea Party candidates that are likely to lose to the Democrats, the gift given to them, and they're ready to pounce, right? And Tim Kaine, at the same time, the head of the DNC, says he's got a bold new proposal that's coming out. Oh, it's about to come out, and it's going to change everything. Is it going to be a policy proposal on tax cuts? Is it going to be a new line of attack against the Republicans? I can't wait. And it turns out he finally revealed it now, and boy, is it good. It is a logo. Yes, we have a new logo. There it is. Oh, my God. The D is in a circle. Brilliant. And then it says, change that matters. Nailed it. Nailed it. Republicans are done. We can wrap this election up. It's over. One of our longtime listeners, John Graziano, pointed this out. I think he makes a great point about it. Really? I mean, he went into great detail. He's like, would it be better without the circle? What if it was a box? What if there was no D? What if there was just a D without the circle? Come on, this is the thing is, it's the hype. Like Tim Kaine was like, oh, here I come, I'm telling you what. I'm like, is he going to pull a Grayson? Is he going to come off the top rope? And he's like, what? It's a circle and a D. To say that I'm not impressed, I think, is a gross understatement.
Do you possibly see this as a roundabout way of saying to liberals and progressives that are like, where's my change? They're saying change that matters, not just all this crazy nonsense you want. We're doing this change that matters. Your change is BS.
But that's exactly where I was going next, Chair. Because you know what? If anything, it could almost be seen as an insult, right? And I know they don't mean it that way. But like, look, this change you wanted, of course we didn't give you that. Don't be ridiculous. But we did give you the change that matters, the little bit of change that we did, but it really matters. It does. Trust us. It almost seems a little defensive, too, right? Now, I get why they're doing it, the logo being like, hey, we delivered on some change, and it's going to really matter in your life. I get that, right? But I think, in fact, it opens up an old wound, because I think the number one problem right now for the Democrats is that a lot of people, certainly the Democratic base who is not enthusiastic about showing up to vote, et cetera, think that we didn't really get change. So if I was them, I'd have skipped that whole part. instead of going with, oh, change that matters, is as soon as I see the word change, I'm like, oh. So I don't think it helps him, man. And if this is his brilliant idea, somebody please phone Howard Dean and get him back. Please. But I've always thought that. Tim Kaine, when are you going to go on the attack? When? When are you going to go on the attack? You drive me crazy. All right, but somebody did. It's called Americans United for Change, and they're not playing. They did a parody ad of the Young Guns. Remember? This is Cantor and Ryan, etc., and they're coming to get you, and you better watch out. I love this parody ad. Let's check it out. Clip number 1.
They are the Young Guns. Eric Cantor, the sassy one. Paul Ryan, the wild one. Kevin McCarthy, because they needed a third one. What are they gunning for? Social Security. Medicare. Middle-class jobs. The Young Guns. Dorky, but dangerous. Middle-aged conservatives recycling ideas that were young when they were.
See, that ad ain't playing. Okay? That's a pretty serious ad. It's got guns in it. Okay? And this group is meant to protect, they were set up, the Americans United for Change was set up to protect Social Security, then eventually Medicare, etc. And Paul Ryan explains in his proposals that, hey, we need to reform Social Security by cutting it. So it is entirely fair and accurate. Of course, they also want to go after Medicare, and of course, they prioritize tax cuts for the rich over jobs for the middle class. Accurate and tough and funny. Hey, look at that. Progressives can't come up with good ads. All right, we've run out of time, even though I got a million other stories for you guys. But it's okay. We got a whole nother 2 hours. Everybody come back. Young Turks.
Here's what I want you all to do for me. Bang! Caught you looking for the same thing. It's a new thing. Check out this I bring. The roll below the level, cause I'm living low next to the base. Come on! Turn up the radio. They're claiming I'm a criminal. But now I wonder how. Some people never know. The enemy could be their friend guardian. I'm now a